Inravio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and you're watching the 505 on Racing Show. Welcome to another Monday night of race talk and whatever else we're going to come up with. But anyway, Indy, we're going to talk about the results later, but I'll tell you what, if you didn't see the race, you're not alone. The place was empty. And I read some of the reports on why the attendance was so down, and they were blaming the weather, the heat, the chance of rain, possible thunder showers, which did pass through and red flagged the race for a little while, tornadoes. They had every excuse under the book except the real one, and that's the product isn't as good as it used to be. You know, Indy's one of those places, similar to Pocono, where you see the cars as they pass by you. You can't see anywhere else in the racetrack. You can't see the backstretch. You can't see the corners. You know, unless you sit in the corner, you can't see those things. I think the best seats in the house there are the seats in turn 1 and 2 that look down the straightaways, and seats 3 and 4 that look down the straightaways. Every other seat there has an obstructed view. You don't see anything. So every 52, 53 seconds, a pack of cars will go by, and I go, oh. Then you sit there for a minute, you know, drink your beverage, whatever, and cars go by again. NASCAR got greedy over the years. The promoters got greedy, and it's not just all the NASCAR's fault. It's the fault of everybody. Even us as fans, we were willing to pay those exorbitant fees. And just like in any business, and it's one of the things my dad told me in business, is you charge whatever the traffic will bear. Now, for years, you couldn't get a ticket for Indy. You couldn't get into the place. Bristol, the same thing. Daytona, you were at the mercy of scalpers who were charging exorbitant amounts of money for these seats, or you went on a big, long waiting list, which I can remember trying to get Daytona tickets in the beginning and being on a waiting list. And if it wasn't for the fact that a friend of the family had tickets and wasn't even interested in the races, that's how we first started going, and then you purchase your own package. You know, the hotels, the price of gas, people trying to get off from work. And there are people that's their weekend off. And what does NASCAR do? They change the schedule, and for years and years, this race is on this weekend, and here you are. That's your week's vacation. Not everybody has a vacation, but those who do, some of them, that's their week. Not everybody has that luxury of getting 4, 5, 6 weeks, and they're high on the totem pole, and they could pick first when you have to pick in seniority order or length of service order for the non-union people. But the place was empty. And there's just so many banners you could put over the seats, which is a lucrative business. Don't get me wrong. I spoke to Clay Campbell at the Martinsville Speedway about those banners, and he said if he sold every one of those seats for the regular price, the price that they get, the banner brings in more money. Yeah, do you want to see people in those seats? Absolutely. But he's a businessman, and as is many of the other track operators, they need to make money, and they're going to make money any way they can. And there's a lot of people that are saying, well, and this kind of irks me when it comes to NASCAR fans. There's, NASCAR lost money. No, they didn't. NASCAR don't own the facility. They might own the facilities through International Speedway Corp, which believe me is making money. But the track operators, maybe they're not making money. However, these billion-dollar TV packages, if I'm a track operator and NBC, CBS, ABC, ESPN, Speed, whatever channel you want to look at wants to pay me millions of dollars to have my race, I made money before I sold one ticket, because that's found money. So what do you think they would lower the ticket prices maybe, or go to the Chamber of Commerce and tell these people, hey, we need to cut these prices back. We need to, stop raping The fan that keeps coming here year after year, week after week. The place was empty. I'm going to show you a shot later. Victory Lane picture of the Xfinity race. There's not a soul in this grandstands. Yeah, that's not the biggest, race of the weekend, but it's the Xfinity race. Front, by the start finish line, at those sections there, you would think people would be sitting there. No. And it's not like they're rushing out to get to beat the traffic. It's not like they went to a baseball game and their home team was losing, so they leave in the 7th inning. People stayed the races to the end and they try to get into the garage area after. It's just not good. It's in trouble. The sport's in trouble, and not just because of attendance. The product isn't what it once was. It's a parade without music for the most part, and the segment racing was supposed to stop that. It did not. Towards the end of a race, towards the end of a segment, they go out racing again because they want those bonus points. They want those extra points. They want those, playoff points. And that's one of the problems is they're not racing. You know what? Don't make these things 500 miles or 400. Make it a quicker race, because that race in this past weekend was 6+ hours. You don't have anybody's attention after 3 sometime. Why do they have to have that? Why? They don't need to have a 500-mile race. Nobody's into it. Nobody's racing. 100 miles, boom, go. You'll see racing. Take this restrictor stuff off. Get the aero package so the drivers have to drive the cars. Because the drivers are. Think about this. Look at races from the 60s, and I'll tell you what, the technology of the chassis and the spring setup are pretty much the same. So you look at those cars, not that they were out of control, but they were driving these things, these guys, and they were driving these things, and they were racing, and you could pass people, and you could hold back and get on the guy's bumper, use that old draft, and get by them, slingshot past them. At the start of these races years ago, they'd go take the checker flag, go into the one, and they'd all be beating and banging. Now, every single car, inches away at the start of these races, not even touching. Come on, they're all not that good. They're good. Don't get me wrong. People are going to tell me, I'm going to get nasty grams. What are you talking about? You wish you could be. No, I'm not saying they're not good race car drivers, but not everybody is that good that nobody's going to burp, nobody's going to bubble. The cars basically drive themselves these days. Think about it. Watch their hands. It's down the straightaway. You don't see this anymore. You don't see that. Maybe on a Bristol or Martinsville, but the restrictor plate tracks, the big tracks, you don't see that. You don't see that. And the fans want to see beating and banging. Not necessarily the real true race fan doesn't want to see wrecks. They don't want to see wrecks. Some do, but they want to see good, hard racing. They don't want to see a parade without music. I went to my local racetrack this Saturday, and believe me, the place looks awesome and all that, and it did a nice job with it. But I watched the INEX race, time trials. And from what I understand, they just started straight up. No redraw, none of that. That, to my knowledge, because I was too busy in the pits with trying to get a car fixed. And basically the way they started is almost how they finished. It was a parade. There was no passing, little passing, I should say. And then there was certain guys that were like mid-pack, because there wasn't a big discrepancy between the pole and maybe the 15th, 16th guy. But once they started to lap some of the slower cars, I don't want to say back markers, it just wasn't their night. But once they started lapping them, some of them would block, and you couldn't pass. And I've said that about modified tour races that do a time trial, they start straight up. It's a parade without music. It's just the roar of the motors. And it's not racing to me. It's just not racing. In these higher levels, yeah, they're racing kind of, but they're racing for the win. They're riding around up until that, and when now they have the stages, and now they're racing for the stage, but it's not good. And this 22 figure eight saying there's a lot of new drivers that have money behind them and always drove the best equipment, while working their way to the upper levels of NASCAR. They never had to muscle their cars, and that's exactly a true statement. Ryan Newman, you know, and he's he's not from the old days, but he's not one of these new rich kids either. Ryan Newman lost his power steering at New Hampshire in the modified, and he muscled that thing around towards the end. You know, because as 22 Fair says, they've never had to muscle their cars. These kids get in these cars, and if it's not perfect, you know, they're crying to the crew chief. Can you imagine, like, Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough, or Richard Petty, you know, David Pearson, you know, crying to their crew chief, the car's loose in and tight out. So drive the daggone thing. Drive it. Use the gas pedal to steer it if you have to. But old-timers taught me that. Sometimes when you have a push, steer the car with the gas pedal. Kick the back around a little bit, you know. We didn't have in our weekly track, we didn't have the opportunity to, I'm going to pit now, we're going to put a little wedge here and a turn there and, you know, drop 4 pounds of air pressure. And this time, we didn't have that luxury. We had to muscle these things around. And these kids today, they don't understand that. I saw a thing where Alex Bowman is spending his time now in a simulator to get the feel of the racetrack. Because these simulators are like, you know, like the ones in the airport, like the airlines have. I had the opportunity to sit in a simulator at UPS in Louisville, Kentucky at the Air Hub. And the guy said to me, what airport do you fly in out of? I said, well, ISA. We don't have ISA, but we have JFK, LaGuardia. I said, yeah, let's go with LaGuardia. I thought I was on the plane. And these simulators, they're just that way. You know, it's three-dimensional, and the bumps and the grinds and everything. It's like that, and that's how they practice. You know, it's like how they practice. It's like a video game. You know, and I'll tell you what, that's not how to learn how to be a race car driver. You know, you don't take daddy's bag full of money with you, and buy your way in, then spend a week in a simulator. These guys years ago, they went to tracks and they tested. Now tests are about tires and motors and downforce. It's not the same. And the fans, the true diehard fans, you know, are withering away. They're withering away. The old-time fan from the 60s and 70s, think about those guys now. You know, they're 70 years old. They're not going to the races no more. And young kids today, they want instant gratification, so they're not going to the races because they're not going to sit there for 4 hours to watch their favorite car race. They're not going to do that. You know, they'd rather be at the beach or the clubs or whatever. They don't even drag race on the streets no more, some of these young guys. You look at these guys racing on the streets, some of them are like, you know, my age. You know, it's a whole different aspect in racing today, and it's just not the same. You can't identify the cars to a make and model anymore. Yeah, the nose panel says, you know, Camry or Ford or Chevrolet. It says that, but show me where it looks like that. Yeah, they've made the templates, believe it or not, to fit the stock production vehicle, and that's it. The fenders and the doors and the lights. I don't know of a two-door Camry anywhere. I don't know. I don't know of a front wheel, a rear wheel drive Camry, but that's what they're racing. Cars today are all front wheel drive, but the car on the racetrack isn't. It's running at 1965 technology with the Ford 9-inch rear or the 10-bolt Chevy rear. That's what they're running today, with a drive shaft, turning the tranny, turning the motor, which is in the front of the car. Rear is in the back. It's not fun racing. It's become what Formula One became. It's come what Indy's become. The cars all look the same. And if it wasn't for the color schemes, you wouldn't be able to tell. You wouldn't be able to tell. You know, cars were distinct. Think of David Pearson's Mercury. How many people had a car like that looked like David Pearson's in the series back then, the Grand National Division, as they called it? Not too many. But you can go to your local dealership and buy that same body style. Just like Richard Petty's Plymouths. His Plymouths always look different. You know, they didn't have the matching templates and all that kind of good stuff. They had to match certain body heights and widths and things of that nature, but they didn't drop these laser-affected things down, that measure like to 3/32 of an inch. That, oh, you're disqualified, fix it, go around. Really, does 3/32 of an inch going to make a difference? The fans want to see racing. They want to see cars race. They want to see passing. They want to see some rubbing. They want to see some pushing and shoving. That's what they want to see. And the fans are starting to speak out, and they're speaking out in a quiet way. They're just not showing up. It's like the movie at the multiplex. It comes out on Wednesday, and if a lot of people didn't go see it over that weekend, the following Wednesday it's replaced with another movie. If it's a good movie, it stays on because people keep coming. NASCAR might want to take a lesson from that. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about the Whelen Modifieds.
Hey, what's I was going to say what's up for some reason. Hey, we're Set It Up, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi there, this is Buddy from Less Than Jake, and you are listening to Inravio TV. You're probably watching it too.
Hey, welcome back. During the break, I was kind of looking through the chat room, and 22 figure eight, being a figure eight driver back when, he said, when they had an event that everybody was crashing and they put on a bad show, he as a competitor was embarrassed, and he's hoping that NASCAR feels the same way today, and hopefully they do. Hopefully they're taking a look at that, and Steve O'Donnell, who's the vice president there, and he handles the competition, he needs to take a look at this. And I hate to say this, I've said this many times, this is what happens when non-racers try to run a racing business. They're clueless. They're clueless, and they have to rely on input from other people. Sometimes these other people have an agenda. Sometimes these other people are like, I can't rock the boat, because I need this job. And I'll tell you what, as a manager, and I've been a manager, I'm going to say all my life, I don't think I had a job where I was not the manager, except when I was in 11th grade and I worked in a dairy store. But 3 months later, I was a manager. So my thing with managing people, whether you're managing people in the dairy business, the trucking industry, the supermarket industry, or a racetrack, the idea is to make money, and I'd rather have an employee come up to me and say, we need to try it this way. and spell out a plan to me. Because if it doesn't work, you could always go backwards. I'd rather have employees who take the bull by the horns and take initiative than a yes man. A yes man will put a business out of business. And that's what I learned while I was at NASCAR. They didn't want input. They wanted good wooden soldiers that went, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. What do you think about such and such? Well, the way the company believes is that's fine with me. And that's what they wanted to hear. They didn't want to hear that, hey, you know, we used to have 50 modifieds at this event, but we only have 27 now because the other modified series has 37. They didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to hear that. They went to the other division, which paid almost the same and cost a heck of a lot less. They didn't want to hear that. You know, and when you can't be constructive in your job to your superiors, you're just a puppet. And you're just a guy who's just going to go to work every day, do your job, and you're going to sit there and you're going to say to yourself, they should do it this way, they should do it that way. You know, there was no social media when I worked years ago. There was no social media, so you sucked it up. You talked about it in the break room. You talked about it with your friends at the barbecue on the weekends. Now everybody's on social media, and then they want to fire you for telling the truth. You know, because there's no avenue. Nobody in NASCAR wants to go to their, as NASCAR puts it, direct report and say, we need to try this. There's too many people in the business, in the racing industry today, that never raced a car. And in the words of the late Walt Edsel, one of the finest officials I ever worked with, he goes, Joe, if they don't have grease under their fingernails, they don't know what they're talking about. You know, it's easy to read a book and look at computer printouts and say, do it this way, do it that way. But the bottom line is, nobody's looking at your product no more. Nobody's going to the races. It's like you had a store and you sold pants and shirts. If you're still selling bell bottoms in 2017, a style that went out 40 years ago, you're out of business. And what NASCAR is trying to do is keep the cars pretty, let the sponsor logos be on TV, you know, and go from there. And the downforce and the restrictor plate racing. And they want cars running in single file. Why? So the logos could be on TV. Just my opinion, and I don't mean this in a way to knock NASCAR. I'm saying this in a way that maybe because I know there's people down in Charlotte in the Concord area that watch the show and listen to it and even go on during the week to hear what I'm saying. Maybe one of you guys could cut your puppet strings and go and come up with a plan, you know. And like my mom said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Don't just go to your higher up and say, you know, we're going to need to get more people in the seats. No, you need to say, we need to change the race cars so they're racing again. We need to change the way we do things. We don't need to have 5 hours of practice for the people to sit in the grandstands to watch so we could sell hot dogs. I don't understand, especially the modifieds. We're going to talk about them in a minute. You know, these modified shows, these 3-day shows for the modifieds are unnecessary on the Wheel of Modified Tour. Go in that morning, tech that morning, practice between 11 and 1, whatever it is. Do your qualifying at 2, race at 5, and be out there by 7. You shouldn't have to show up late Thursday night or early Friday morning just to unload and go through the engine check and the carburetor check and whatever else they're going to check. There's no need for that. And then practice 2, 3, 4 times that day and then qualify late that afternoon and have a quickie practice or scuff session on Sunday and race Sunday night. That is the most ridiculous plan I've ever seen. The NASCAR Wheel of Modified Tour is derived of working guys. Yeah, the car owners, they're business owners, or the guys that, you know, made a killing in the stock market or oil futures or whatever they did. But the drivers and the teams, for the most part, are working people. They're working people who work Monday through Friday. So now they got to take off. They got to use up all their vacation time. And what's happening now is because they've used all their vacation time to go racing, they can't be with their families. And you're seeing families taking separate vacations. But anyway, the modifieds. You know, the modifieds were off this past weekend, and they'll be at Stafford this coming weekend at the Stafford Motor Speedway in Stafford Springs, Connecticut. And the points look like this, a little shake-up after New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Roman Pennick is the point leader over Timmy Solomino. Eric Goodale is third in the points. Max Sackham is fourth. Justin Bonsignor is fifth. Ryan Priest sixth. Doug Colby seventh. Dave Sapienza eighth. Woody Pitkat ninth. And Matt Swanson rounding out the top 10. Speaking of the Whelen Modified Tour, the Whelen Modified Tour driver Andy Seuss, I should say, and owner Eddie Harvey parted ways last week, together since 2011. They have back-to-back championships on the Southern Mod Tour in 2014 and 15. Reason for this is both are going down different paths at this point. You're seeing more and more of that with the modifieds. Seuss is looking to move to ARCA and or Xfinity and beyond, where Harvey seems content running modifieds. And with the demise of the Southern Tour and most of the Whelen Modified Tours are up north, Harvey's crew cannot make the commitment. So here's a good driver, good team that are splitting up for partially because of NASCAR. And I say that because these two series, the North Tour and the Southern Tour, were supposed to merge a long time ago, and they didn't. The Southern guys, the whole series was pretty much based at 3 racetracks, right in town, right pretty much in the same state. And they don't want to drive to Long Island. They don't want to trailer up and haul to Long Island. It's an expensive tow. It's an expensive, at least one overnight. They don't want to go to Stafford. They don't want to go to Thompson. And the few times that they have done this, NASCAR kicked in a little bit to the Southern teams for going up there. And as Jamie Tomeno, who said at the time when he had like 680 starts, he goes, I've been in this tour since it started, and NASCAR hasn't even given me a hot dog or a soda. And to get these Southern teams up here, they're paying them. And he didn't think that's right. He goes, I went down south, nobody paid me extra money to go. And he's right there. You know, he's a good team. And when you look at the Southern Tour modified guys, they have options. They could race at the stadium, you know, Bowman Gray there in North Carolina. They can go to Caraway and race there and be in a weekly series. Or they have the modified racing series down there as well, which is, it's just an offshoot of the Southern Modified Tour, because they're pretty much racing at the same racetracks. But you're going to see more and more of this. You know, Burt Myers and his brother, they're tearing it up down there because they're the big fish in a little pond. And you know, Burt Myers races basically for a living. You know, his wife has a very lucrative job, so his job is to go racing. You know, why Burt Myers certainly hasn't moved up to the next level, I don't know. Maybe the parade passed him by because of his age, because, you know, he doesn't have billions of dollars like some of these kids coming in. But you look at what happened there. You know, why does the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour have less cars now than it did a year ago with the merger of the Southern Tour? People are talking. People are talking because they're going to the other series. They're going to the Valente series. They're going to the Modified Racing Series. They're going to that Southern Modified Racing Series as well. And it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to swallow. And speaking of a breakup here, is driver Woody Pitkat was released from Goody Motorsports. He's sitting 9th in points. He's 9th in points, and he loses his ride. You know, team owner Jeff Goodale and his dad Edgar Goodale apparently texted Goody and Woody and said it's time to go. And I'm sure there was some talk before that. I'm sure, because social media blows everything up. I'm sure there was talk. You know, we might need to go in a different direction here. And then people were on social media that the Goody Motorsports, you know, can't afford the other car, and they can't do this, and they can't do that, and they're concentrating on Eric. Let me tell you something, and I know firsthand that that's not the truth. You know, what happens sometimes when you have a driver that doesn't live near your race shop, what happens is that the communication gets worn down. The driver's not in the shop as often as he could be or should be. The communication's key, and not only in racing, but any you do. Communication is key. And you know what happens is something got lost in translation of the driver. And I'm not saying this is the case here, but this is what I noticed when I was a car owner, how drivers driving for me. You know, I thought he meant this, so you make that change, and they're not happy, and that's what happens. And normally, what happens is the driver doesn't tell the owner or the crew chief. He tells his friend, who tells another guy, who tells his girlfriend's sister, who tells her boyfriend, because he's a crew guy on another team. And by the time it gets around, a little thing like we need to add 2 pounds of pressure to the right front becomes the tires are junk. We need 4 new ones. That's what happens, and it's just one of those things. And I hope Woody Pitcat picks up a ride. He's a good driver. When he was with the Buzz Chew team, driving the 88 there out of Long Island, they had very good success, and then the 88 team got tired of NASCAR and they went dirt racing. Woody was out in the street again. There's not a lot of cars in the Whelen Modified Tour like there used to be, and the ones that are looking or could use a full-time driver is going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of money. And and I saw that the vintage mods were here on Long Island this past weekend, and some nice looking cars, some good memories watching them drive around the pits. And I think if when you look at these vintage cars from the old days, you see the X3 there, you see the 61 of Richie Evans. Some of them might not be the original cars. Some of them made to look like it. Some are the original cars, but you know what? People sit in the stands, those old timers, guys like me, and again, I didn't get an opportunity to watch the race per se because we're helping putting a car back together in the area. But the fans loved it. They loved that old time stuff. And these guys are racing. It's not, they get in a huddle. All right, it's your turn to win, so make it look like a race. These guys are racing, and Don Howe, former Riverhead track champion and Safer Hall of Famer, won again, and he's like the guy to beat every week. He's the guy to beat. So, if you ever catch one of these races, whether on Long Island or elsewhere, you got to check it out. They're fun to watch, and it's good to see some of the old guys. Guy Jimmy Kelly from Long Island, who's parked a couple of pit stalls away from me this past weekend, and he smiled the whole day. He got out of his race car when it was all over, smiling like a little kid whose grandmother gave a $50 bill. And I said, "You having fun?" He goes, "Absolutely. This is what I like to do." He just wants to do laps. He just wants to do laps. And that's what it's all about with some guys. But in these series, the Whelen Modified Tour, the K&N Pro Series, who will be in Iowa this Friday night with the Xfinity Series. These guys, they're not looking to be superstars. They're not looking to be professionals. They're not looking to move up the ranks. They're looking to have a good time. And that's what the weekly series was all about. And even that's changing. It's all changing. But anyway, I guess change is good, but I'm not good with change. So I like the old days a little more. I like the old days. I liked racing the way it was. You didn't look at a schedule. You raced every week from opening day to championship day, and you showed up every week. And if you had to go somewhere, a family thing, a wedding, oh well, you went and did it. But the way scheduling is, and it's not just on Long Island. It's all the weekly tracks. They must have went to a seminar and they said you shouldn't race every week. It's too expensive. I don't know. I'm out of the loop there. But anyway. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some more stuff that's going on in the top series in NASCAR when we come back.
Hi, I'm Remington. I'm Emerson.
And I'm Sebastian.
We're Palais Royale, and you're watching Inravio TV.
There we go.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, this is Chris Less Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Master. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi, this is Mike Jarecki from My Race News, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Let's see. 22 figure eight. A little side note, as he puts, saying that NASCAR Weather Modified Tour driver Doug Colby had a little bit of payback on Timmy Solomino for what happened in Langley. And Timmy and his team seemed focused on a championship, but it wasn't good. And Timmy's still second in the points, and he's got 3 wins. And I'll tell you what, when the season ends, the season closer at Thompson, Timmy's still going to be bound for that championship, I think. And you know, it's a lot of people think wrecks are on purpose, and you know, sometimes. And I watched the Langley incident. I also watched the one up in New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and I don't believe it was an on-purpose thing. Did Doug try to shut the door on Timmy? Absolutely. And did Timmy get caught up in it and have a horrific wreck? Yeah, he did. I'm not thinking that's what Doug intended to do. I think Doug's intention was to have Timmy hit the brakes and lose his momentum and lose a few spots. But you know, the only person that really knows what happens when these incidents is the driver in the seat. But anyway, yes, trucks, the Camping World Truck Series, they were at Eldora on a night race on the dirt. And I watched that race. Wow, I loved it. Matt Crafton was the winner, followed by Stuart Friesen. The third was Chase Briscoe. Grant Enfinger was fourth. John Hunter Nemechek fifth. Bobby Pierce sixth. Noah Gregson seventh. Justin Haley was eighth. Christopher Bell ninth. And Austin Cindric rounding out the top 10. Stuart Friesen had the pole in that event. And I'll tell you what, they put some dirt drivers in the race for some of the teams, and you could see they could get around. And you know, the trucks racing on dirt weren't like the dirt cars that I've seen at the Orange County Fast Speedway or Norwegian Speedway in New Jersey, but the track got really hard, and the guys who got up in the soft spot were just freight trained by. And when you looked at this event, this is a bumping and beating and banging type of race, and yeah, that's these guys had to drive. They had to drive these cars or trucks. They had to drive them, and you know, I would love to see the other two series, the Xfinity and the Monster Energy Drink Cup Series, go on dirt. They used to race on dirt in the Grand National days. Why not? Why not do it? Maybe there's not a venue that's big enough to handle the crowd, but guess what? You're not getting a crowd anymore. Put them on at Orange County. Put them up at Orange County Fast Speedway in Middletown, New York. Put the cup cars up there. Man, you'd see some racing. You'd see some racing. And I'm sure they could put auxiliary seats in that place. And what do they call it? The drive-in theater section up there and the backstretch. The place would be packed. It would be an awesome, awesome race. But I don't know. They don't want to do things like that. They want to continue to race the way they're racing. And again, I'm going to say it again. It's if the product was good, the stands would be packed. And if the pricing was reasonable and people didn't feel like they were getting slammed, you'd have more people in the grandstands as well. And I know there's people that bought tickets and didn't go, because you go on the website, you try to buy tickets a few days before. There's not a lot of available seats. And part of that too is these groups who buy fistfuls of tickets, and they're the guys across the street who needs tickets, try to get rid of them. They're not getting rid of them anymore. They're not getting rid of them. Anyway, the Xfinity Series was at Indy, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And we got there. William Byron was the winner, followed by Paul Menard, Joey Logano third, Elliott Sadler fourth, Cole Custer's fifth, Ryan Reed was sixth, Brendan Poole was seventh, Daniel Hemrick eighth, Brandon Jones ninth, and Ty Dillon rounding out the top 10, and Elliott Sadler got his fourth place finish after finishing on the pole. And like I said earlier, the next race for the Xfinity Series will be in Iowa. And the next race for the Camping World Truck Series will be this weekend in Pocono. Oh, yes, and some of the Xfinity, there's nothing really going on too much in the Xfinity Series, but the Cup Series was also at Indy. And if we can go back to that victory shot in the Xfinity Series, I just want to point something out. Look at all those seats. Look at all those seats. And NASCAR needs to look at those empty seats too, and the cameras try to avoid them as much as possible. That's what I'm talking about. There shouldn't be empty seats there. Anyway, and I'm bad. The Cup Series, we can talk about that one too. Look at those empty seats. Place is empty. It's an embarrassment. But anyway, Casey Kane won the race. Not too many people saw it. Brad Keselowski was second. Ryan Newman was third, Joey Logano fourth, Matt Kenseth fifth, Kevin Harvick was sixth, followed by Daniel Suarez. Matt DiBenedetto was eighth, Chris Buescher was ninth, and A.J. Allmendinger rounded out the top 10. The polls, Kyle Busch, he was involved in an accident, finished 34th. 34th. And again, their next race will be this next weekend coming up, Sunday at Pocono. Speaking of Kyle Busch, both Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. were hoping to win at Indy, with less than 50 laps to go. Both Busch and Truex wrecked each other from the front row. Truex elected on that restart to go to the outside. He admitted later he made a mistake, and he got a little wobbly, got into Busch. Busch is in the fence, Truex is in the wall, and Truex's car explodes with fire. Busch's last victory was over a year ago, and he really thought he had a shot at it. And Truex, again, his car had burst after flame, hitting the wall. He actually took blame for the incident. He sat there and said, "It was my fault. My fault." And fortunately, both drivers were okay. Good deal. Then the Brickyard event, scheduled for 160 laps, had 3 red flags, 1 for thunder and rain and 2 for accidents. And the race took over 6 hours. We kind of talked about that earlier. Many felt the final caution, which put the race into overtime, was delayed until the eventual race winner, Casey Kane, was declared the winner. Darkness was looming, and many NASCAR fans wanted to see the race green-white checker again, but NASCAR did not go with a green-white checker. They declared the race because they held back on the caution, as some people think, to make sure Casey Kane passed that little line that says the race is official. NASCAR Executive VP and Chief Racing Development Officer Steve Aldana said this is not true. Yes, darkness was looming, but Casey Kane did pass that magical line and the caution went out. And I've worked up in the tower and in the top 3 series, and I'm going to tell you how it goes. You have spotters on the official spot, not the spotters on the roof, but at different spots on the racetrack. And as something happens, they'll say incident turn 3. And now, by the time the incident happens, it's seen by the official, it's radioed up. Sometimes the tower sees it, sometimes they don't. And then there's a look, and the caution is determined not from the flag guy. A lot of people think, once you go green, it's the flagman's race. It's not true. The flagman lists his direction. That's the way it's supposed to be. There's a button that I would push to go yellow. That sends a message to the flagman. He sees a little light. He goes yellow. The lights come on almost at the same time. Sometimes you'll say, hold off, hold off, hold off. There might be discussion in the tower. He's good, he's spinning, spinning. All right, put it out. You put it out. Okay, put it out. And 22 figure 8, who's a musician, says that reminds me of the days when he played for the bartenders. Yeah, I had a bunch of those events myself back in the day. The bar was empty, and we're just playing music. We treated it like a practice section. When you look at things like that, NASCAR isn't trying to manipulate the final outcome, are they? But Keselowski, I think, would have won that race if it would have been a green-white checker. Happy for Casey Kane, he needed the win. But one of the things that you're going to see is with Casey Kane winning that win, it's not guaranteeing him his spot in Hendrick Motorsports in 2018. Rick Hendrick was asked on numerous occasions over the weekend what was going on with that. And that's the only team that he's not sure of what's going to happen. Prior to Sunday's race at Indy, Rick Hendrick addressed the Alex Bowman, who will be replacing Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 88 car in 2018 and 2019. Casey Kane's status in the 5 car was not addressed, and Hendrick also owns the 48 and the 24. Those guys are set. And again, this being Kane's first victory since 2014, Hendrick made a trip to the media center as the winning car owner. And when asked again the status of the 5 car, because it won, Hendrick was quoted as saying, "Our plans are not set for the 5 car." And now think about this. Think about, I have a race car, you're driving for me, the season's coming to an end, and you win the race. And they ask us, "Oh, is Goggles Paisano going to be racing with you next year?" Those plans aren't set yet. What's going to go through your head? What's going to go through your head? And I see these things in the chat room, the red phone. No red phone there. But think about this. Sure, Rick Hendrick has an idea. He's signed Elliott to a multi-year deal worth a lot of money, undisclosed. Jimmy Johnson is going to finish his career out there, whether he has 2 more years or 10 more years. Jimmy Johnson's not going anywhere else. So it's going to be interesting what happens with Casey Kane. Casey Kane has not been the same since 2014. You're talking 3 seasons. 3 seasons that he's just not the same. And when you look at that, it's time. Maybe it's time. And Rick Hendrick's going with this youth movement now. Okay, he's like he did when he brought on Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. They were young guys. He's going with the youth movement. Rick Hendrick is a businessman. And he's going to be around a long time. At least Hendrick Motorsports is going to be around a long time. Trust me when I tell you. And speaking of another good owner, Jack Roush, Roush Fenway Racing, was announced that Jack Roush was inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame. The Automotive Hall of Fame, that's one of the biggest honors you could bestow on anybody other than going into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. The Automotive Hall of Fame. And maybe Hendrick could pay Kane to run the simulator. Maybe he could. But Casey Kane has 1 more year left on his contract, 2018, and it's not unusual for teams to buy out that last year. And Richard Petty Motorsports, Eric Almirola back in the saddle at New Hampshire, back here at Indy, a nice finish, 15th place finish. I injured my back the same way, except my brokenness in my back was not in the T section, it was in the L section. And it's almost 21 years later, and it still hurts. If I hit a bump wrong, if I hit wrong. And I'm sure there's some pain management going on with Eric Almirola, but I'd like to see Bubba Wallace end up somewhere with a team. And the kid is talented. He filled in there for Eric Almirola a couple of races, did okay. It's not easy to just hop into a car that you don't know the crew. It's a new spotter, it's a different car, different setup, whatever. I think if he had a full season with somebody in the Cup Series, I think he'd be fine. The only thing he's lacking was a sponsor, and him and I had a long conversation in December down in Charlotte, and he said, if I don't have a decent sponsor, I can't do this. And we're going to go as long as the sponsor is there and the money's there, and that's what they did. And unfortunately, the sponsor wasn't there, and he's kind of in the background now, doing the best he can with what he has. Is right now is no race car. So that's a business. It's a business, and I say to people when they talk about racing, this is the business we chose, and it's not like any other. You don't go to your union delegate and say, oh, they replaced me. I need to ride somewhere else. And they go to the seniority list and, okay, you have more seniority than this guy, so you're out of the 98 car and you're in. That's not how it works. It's performance-based. Each team puts the best driver they think or they feel in their equipment. Anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap this up and finish up when we come back.
Hey guys, this is Jibs from Ocean's 8 Alaska, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Mark Well. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, we're gonna punch in the. But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
What's up, guys? This is Assuming We Survive, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Hey, welcome back. So this weekend, as I said earlier, I had the opportunity to go out to my local racetrack. I said that earlier in the broadcast. And I went out to the Riverhead Raceway, and good people. Got to see John Elwood and Eddie Partridge, and they're sitting back, making it happen. And I was kind of, and this is no knock on anybody, I was kind of disappointed about the crowd. The weather kind of messed that up, I'm sure, and also kind of disappointed with the car count. But just like as any business, the money's tight. Guys don't have the money that they used to have, and it's tough to field a car at any level, whether you're an entry-level guy or you're in the feature division. But I was kind of touched by something that I saw this past Saturday night, and it happens to be a car that my company sponsors, Vinnie Delaney, in the INEX division number 17. And And this is what I saw, and it's a good bunch of guys, let me tell you. It reminds me of the old figure eight days with Safer in the 70s and 80s. It was a time trial show. Vinny set a pretty nice time on lap 1. You knew lap 2 was going to be faster. And he took the white flag after his first time trial up, went around 1 and 2, backstretch. He set himself up for turn 3, and something broke in the back of the car. And he did not get that lap in. When we got the car to the pit area, a mount for a trailing arm, which holds the rear in place, broke, snapped the drive shaft, pushed the shifter linkage into the motor, and in Vinny's words, we're done. He's a defending champion, not only of the series, but he was also the defending champion of that event. And what I saw was, I don't even know how to put it. It gave me goosebumps, and you know, I was in the thick of things. There's not much I could do with this bum leg, but I was able to do something. I watched 4 other teams, drivers, owners, drivers, crew guys, come over and all had a hand in putting this car back together and fixing it. From even the tow truck guy at the racetrack, making sure that we can get towed to the welding station. People giving up parts, tools, things to make it happen. And the officials from INEX kept coming down. You're going to make it, you're going to make it. Because he had qualified the race in time, even though he only did 1 lap. He only had enough time because there was only 2 races going to be run, and then the legends were running. And I sat back there, and the stress on this kid's face that it just, he wanted it right. He wanted it done right. He was afraid it wasn't going to be done right. And we think we got it right. And the INEX official was over his shoulder. You got to make it, you got to make it. One more race to go. We did. I know him as a race director for the INEX. I've been in a position you need to know if you're coming out or not. And we thought it was done. We couldn't get the car to shift. They had to do stuff with the shifter. He was afraid the motor was brand spanking new. It was the maiden voyage of this motor. And what we had to do to make this happen, they did. And, you know, and I'm not good at names, and some of the people I don't know, but you know, Jeff Otto and his dad and his crew were there helping. Steve Hershey and his son, Eric, and there was 2 other teams there, and I'm not good with names, and I wish I would have got them. But you know, to watch him get in that race car and go race, he finished, I think, 12th or 11th. But you know, and I see that, you know, Need for Speed saying that with the vintage cars they help each other. Absolutely. But this was a national qualifying race against a guy that could beat you. And it reminded me of the days in our old figure 8 days. I don't want to beat you in the pits. I want to beat you on the racetrack. So my hat's off to all those teams that came and helped put this thing back together. I realized I'm an old guy. I can't do what I used to do. Although when we had to get the car off the jack stands and the jack was at the other end of the pit area and the tow truck was on the racetrack, we just picked it up, and that I can still do. Picked up the back of the car and dropped it down. But again, a big thank you for all the teams. And if I didn't mention your name, it's not on purpose. I didn't know your name, and I only saw your feet because you're underneath the race car. So thanks again, and to those guys that did that. We got it out there. We didn't finish as good as we wanted to, but we finished. Anyway, with that, we're going to wrap this up. There will not be a show next Monday. I will be away celebrate my grandson's first birthday. But wherever your endeavors are going to bring you this weekend, please be safe. Please be careful. Give somebody a hug. Tell them you love them. God bless you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Good night, everybody.
Inravio.com.